Tonight on Noble Legends podcast, I'm lucky enough to have Matthew Hatfield, the great Matthew Hatfield of Virginia Preps, on the eve of a brand new season. Very excited today. Uh, Matthew, great to talk to you. Thanks for doing this.
Always a pleasure, Julian. It's that time of year again. The summers are getting shorter, and the work days are getting longer in a sense of getting all this content up with our site. We just merged this summer with On3 now, part of Rivals. So we're getting some of the kinks ironed out and new message forums. But I think a lot of neat features for the readers and the fans once we get rocking and rolling here.
Yeah, the weather's been cool, so it's kind of felt like football season. But to tell us what is on three, and make sure people know where to find you.
Sure. It's part of it used to be the Rivals Network powered by Yahoo
Oh,
Sports on July 1st. It went into effect that On Three merged with Rivals. So you're taking two of the big recruiting titans in the industry and putting them together. And Shannon Terry, who was the brainchild of both Rivals at its infancy, and then also starting up On Three, has this together. So you're getting the best of college team sites, a lot of neat things with high school where there'll actually be a score tracker that's similar to Max Preps, Julian, where people can see the entire national scores for all the high schools. And it's going to be updated throughout the night. We'll still have our scoreboard. We still have our forums. We'll still have a lot of the content we do our entire team. But I think that you'll see logos and team pages and rosters, a lot of things that with the high school infrastructure they're building that I think once it gets up and really full steam ahead, the high school fans will love it. It might take some time for people to get used to, but it'll be pretty cool to check out once all the features get implemented, if you will.
that sounds great. I follow college soccer just because I
Mhm.
follow high school soccer and I want to see how the kids do. And it's amazing how all the college teams, their websites all connect. So if for example, George Mason's playing Yale, after you check the Yale roster, then you can get Yale scheduled, and if Yale's playing Brown, it's all the websites are intertwined now. So it's great for fans just to get lost and to see. So is that what you're going to try to build with on three?
Yeah, for sure. So if you go to the rivals.com main page, I would just encourage people to check out. There's a Rivals High School tab and just play around and look at it and scan it and browse it, and you'll see all kinds of neat things that the entire team is doing. So, and then in Virginia Preps, we have everything in Virginia that you always enjoy loving to see when it comes to football, basketball season, and everything in there. So, yeah, it'll be lots of fun. And it's here. High school football's here. And we've got some compelling matchups to start things off.
Oh no, I can't wait. But before we get to that,
Mhm.
I'm a little concerned. This Smithfield High School, they hired this coach
Oh,
with no experience. The
I
guy's been
know.
talking head for the last, 3 or 4 years. Who is this guy that Smithfield is going to entrust with their basketball program?
Yeah, his name is Edward Vincent Young, his full name. He's one of the winningest coaches in the area and the state, 500 plus wins. I think he's just one of only like four or five in Hampton Roads history. And he's been my longtime radio co-host and then also now podcast and TV co-host with Cova Sports TV. And people, by the way, can check it out on Cox and Your View. If you don't have the podcast, it's on television now, Julian, too, in the Northern Virginia, Fredericksburg, Roanoke, and Hampton Roads markets. But he is out of retirement after 1 year. I'm glad in a sense because he went to more games last basketball season, Julian, than I did, and he was driving me nuts. Also doing the ODU women's play-by-play. I would like to get a night break, instead of going to five games in 5 days. I like to go like to 4 or 5 or so, and I watch someone in FHS online. He would hit me up on the phone. Where are you at tonight? Where are we going? And I'm like, I need some sleep here. So
Yeah.
he's a true junkie at heart. But I'm also a little upset at him because I was knee deep in football previews and cranking them out. And on my birthday, he calls me to let me know that it's official. I'd heard the whispers for a long while, and he tried to play it coy and didn't even wish me happy birthday. You believe that? He just wanted to tell me he got the job. That's how selfish that guy is. Yeah.
Well, when you're is old as me and Coach Young, we look at your birthdays and like you got plenty left. That's
Right.
what's the big deal. But it's so great to have Coach Young and then Coach Hall. These old
Yes.
timers stepping back in and imparting all the knowledge. It's going to make a compelling basketball season.
Can I give you a real fast Gary Hall story?
Sure.
So obviously took Herndon with Scotty Reynolds to the state championship, and it's one of the best around. I think he's going to do marvelous things at Martinsville, which is a storied program. Husky Hall and Jeff
Yes.
Atkins and all the championships they've won. But he was at Middleburg Academy. They came down and played in our Virginia Preps Classic when he had Nick Brown and Jimmy Page, not Stairway to Heaven Jimmy Page, the basketball player Jimmy Page, and Mo Ali Cox, who plays in the NFL, as you know. Mo Ali Cox, who would transfer from South County to there, was this unknown. And I went up there to see them. It was at the Lake Braddock Holiday Tournament, the old, used to be the Hubert Davis tournament, now the Glory Days or whatever it's called, Tournament of Champions. Anyhow, went up there to see Gary's team in Middleburg, and we didn't know who Mo Ali Cox was. Actually went with one of the longtime former basketball coaches in the area, and Boo Williams aides Harry Rest. We went up there and made that trek. And we both walked out there like, good Lord, Mo Ali Cox has hands that are just as big as pizzas. And he was walk out of there. Oh my gosh. Next thing you know, he goes to VCU, NFL career. But he was literally, Julian, a total unknown. And Gary came down 2 years to play in our Virginia Preps Classic. Actually lost both of the games to Booker T. Washington out of Norfolk, and then coached by Darren Sanderlin, and then to Lancetown in overtime. But man, oh man, he's just a heck of a coach and a great guy.
It is. That was the most random piece of news I got this summer. All of a sudden, Gary Hall is coaching the Martinsville. I was like, what the heck is going on? But what a great match.
Maybe we can get a Martinsville Smithfield matchup in the future. That'd be pretty cool, right?
Exactly. Yeah. They could bring me out of retirement to officiate the game. So
I love it.
yeah. Well, let's get to some off-season stories. It wouldn't be football without off-season drama. The drama in football just completely eclipses basketball. I mean, football off-season is just crazy. The first story this year was, of course, and this happened, during basketball season when Coach Overton from Hayfield, former Freedom coach that won two state titles, he took a show to St. James, a incredible facility where I always see you watching basketball tournaments. But they started a football program and I guess an online kind of school blend type thing, which are popping up all over the place. Hayfield was left in a whole bunch of disarray because of all the investigations last year. It looks like a dream job for Coach Overton. Understand they're taking good care of him. Very happy for him. What did you think about this news story? And are you sad to see him leave the public school game?
No, not really. I think it was time. It's actually something he and I discussed before he left Freedom to go to Hayfield, that it was something he would consider if the right opportunity came along. And I think it was the right time and opportunity. Certainly the Hayfield thing did not end the way he wanted to, or the fans wanted to, or I think anybody involved envisioned for it to. And I think it's a great situation for him. We'll see how it builds over time. Some people that are Hayfield supporters and fans are a little bit upset at what transpired, but I would just simply say, without going too in depth on it, is that, look, not saying he needed to be fired or dismissed or that nature, but I can't feel sorry for them when they had opportunities to do things differently and they refused not to. Their administration, to me, is who dropped the ball. This wasn't about the coaching staff. This definitely wasn't about the kids. I think they get shortchanged in that situation. Another scandal I'm sure we're going to talk about that happened in Northern Virginia this offseason. But he made a really what was a business and personal family decision best for him. And I think for him moving forward in his career, this is the right situation for him to take. So, given what he had done at Freedom of Woodbridge with back-to-back state titles, given what Hayfield was positioned to do, and then things didn't materialize the way that they had hoped, I think this was the situation that fit him best at this time.
Yeah, it's a shame it didn't work out. I will say all the spotlight on football and Northern Virginia sports has caused a whole bunch of new rules of enforcement,
Yeah.
at least rumors of enforcement, even in basketball. So it left a little bit of a mess. Hopefully, everything will work out. I'm not blaming Hayfield for that. I'm just
No,
and the Fairfax story is not helping.
no.
Apparently, Coach Trey, I'm losing his name
Taylor.
here.
Taylor. Yep.
Trey Taylor.
Yep.
There's some allegations in the program that some money was given to a player, and next thing I know, that the coaches are on administrative leave. The kid, he's never been identified. There's rumors swirling around. What do you make of the Fairfax controversy?
I mentioned this on another podcast I was on recently, Julian, is that what disturbs me most is, and it's a little bit similar to Hateful in this regard, is that the 6'1", 205-pound senior linebacker or lineman, that kid is not a high level FBS or FCS recruit. That's the kid who suffers the most in this, because now or if this was even a female sport, it could be, volleyball, soccer, whatever, but whatever it would be, they would be the ones hearing all summer long, about, oh my gosh, what your school did and your coach did, and they have to hear it and answer the questions time after time. I almost equate it, and I know this is very strong, and some might not get this analogy, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's almost like in Major League Baseball, where you had a team, the Cleveland Guardians. I'm sure you read about their two pitchers that were involved with a gambling scandal, and they got hot after the All-Star break, and then they've fizzled since. And all those players in that clubhouse and dugout and coaches here is, are we going to get those two pitchers back? I think it was Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase. And it overshadows it. And it puts a black cloud over the Fairfax Lions and all the hardworking young men and the coaches who are doing it the right way. And really what it boils down to is, and I don't want this to come off like, oh, he's making this. No, I have nothing against Coach Taylor. But in this instance, let's just call it what it is. You had adults who decided to act like children. And if you have adults acting like children, they need to suffer the consequences, plain and simple. So that means you have to suspend said coaches if there is evidence that indeed, basically, not just they've been implicated, but it proves what has been alleged did happen. Then they need to suffer the consequences. We now have, this as a former referee, Julian, we now have the ejection rule. I was at a scrimmage with Maury and Salem recently, and the officials did a great job of basically outlining it clearly to players. If you get ejected for fighting, it's 30% of your season. That's 3 games regular season for football players. That's in basketball. We're talking like, 5, 6 games, right? So it does you no good to hurt your team and your teammates and your school for getting ejected for fighting. In this case, you had coaches that have, again, been accused of doing something that doesn't seem like it's on the up and up. You're hurting these kids and you need to suffer the consequences. And I think this goes down to whether it be recruiting situations or scandals that are off the field. You have to have some of these school districts and counties crack down on it so that, again, it's said that, look, we're not going to tolerate this anymore. And the thing that bothers me is we have too many people that are out there that claim they're for the kids. And now you have situations where it's, you need to come here and you'll end up being this player when the reality is they end up being a Division I walk-on when they were probably a Division II, Division III kid to begin with. So that's my soapbox. I hope I outlined it clearly. But ultimately, what bothers me the most is we're not talking about what kind of year Fairfax can have. Instead, it's about, did you hear about this? And now this black cloud overshadows what they can be potentially. Now it's up to those players and coaches that are there, put that aside and try to block out the noise and distractions, which is not easy.
Yeah. The ironic thing is that they probably could have artfully structured a deal in the world of NIL that was completely legal. And it seems like they just were a little bit lax or sloppy, allegedly. Who knows? One scandal or off-season story down your way was the cancellation of a scrimmage between Maury and Class 5 winner Maury against Class 4 winner Phoebus. And it was never a real reason given. It was canceled due to social media concerns, which is the strangest reason I've heard. What is your read on the cancellation of that scrimmage?
So from what I had heard, there were some coaches that got a little too chesty and mouthed off to each other and mouthed off to some fans. And I think probably I don't know the full story, so I'm only speculating the sense is that probably the administrators of the schools maybe got together or one of the schools decided we're not, or even the coaches of one of the two schools says we're not going to do this from a safety and precautionary reason, which I think was the right thing to do. And I'm not going to defend if that indeed is what transpired and it's not a great look. But here's my thing. Look, they both have played each other before in scrimmages and benefit games. I know that it's out there that they should play each other in a regular season game. Phoebus wants to get its win streak. Whether that's the reason why they're not playing Maury or not, it is irrelevant to me. They both need to be focused on what's ahead of them. Phoebus trying to get a 5th state title and have a great year. And Maury, which is on a 30-game win streak of their own. It's not as long as Phoebus's 49, I think it is, but trying to get a 3-peat. And they don't have to scrimmage or play each other. Would it be great? Absolutely. Would love to see Phoebus and Oscar Smith again. Phoebus and Maury and Oscar Smith, which has not happened either. We're talking about 3 defending state champs, all in the 757 area code. But and I can tell you this for a fact, I know in speaking, I don't know if this is still the case, but I know years ago when people said, why is Oscar Smith not playing Maury? Oscar Smith's administration at that time, again, not saying it's necessarily the case now, did not want to play Maury. That was we don't want to play him, we don't want to. And That's their decision. So again, it's not always up to the school or coaches. There's sometimes people above. And again, that might not be why they're not playing now. It might be Optimus all on board and Maury's not. Don't know. I really don't care. Bottom line is, if there's a reason where safety could be an issue, we need to do it. And the fans can say, oh, that's just sour. No, it's the truth. We have enough bad publicity. Let Maury scrimmage like they did Salem. Let Phoebus go scrimmage Trinity Episcopal, which is what I heard they were going to do after their try scrimmage with Manchester and Kings Fork, and get on with your season. Phoebus has got some tough games ahead. Highland Springs in October, and Maury's got Cardinal Gibbons in North Carolina. By the second week of October, Julian, nobody will care or remember if they had a benefit game this year or scrimmage. They've done it the last 2 years, so or 3 years even, maybe 2 or 3 years. It's okay. It's okay. We'll all live and get through it. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll be all right.
Well, back when I was in high school, and there were only three classifications, those three schools would have had to meet in the playoffs. It would have been incredible. But now, because we have
Right.
six classifications, the best teams don't have to play unless they want to. So it's
And listen, that is, as we know, and I don't want to get myself or yourself in trouble. That's not their fault.
no, it's
That's
not
the
their fault.
system we have. Yeah, that's the system we have, which is another conversation for another time. So
Yeah, it's just terrible. But anyway, well, you mentioned Oscar Smith. They don't want to play Maury, but they definitely, at least in
well,
the
didn't I
past,
don't know about now. In the past,
in the
their
past.
ministers did.
But
Yeah, in the
they,
past, yeah.
but
We
they,
should
but
give
they
them
are
credit.
playing Gonzaga. Gonzaga is probably is a notch below the top tier DC private schools, but they're very
Mhm.
competitive. They were 7-4 last year. They had some quality wins on their schedule. What do you look for in this game? I'll be there Friday night.
I love this Oscar Smith team. They are great up front, Julian. They have as good an offensive line, defensive line combination as there is in Tidewater and perhaps the state. Um, that being said, and as electric as Travis Johnson is at wide receiver, the four-star committed to Michigan, and Lonnie Andrews, the junior quarterback, who's a great talent. They have some other really bona fide players. Charles McGlown at receiver is really good. Jaden Koval, a corner, is committed to UVA. I know you love that, rocking the Wahoo logo
Yep.
there. And he's the younger brother of Sherrod Koval, who was a standout for them on their championship teams the 2 years they won it, the COVID shortened year in the full season, went to Clemson and then transferred to Virginia Tech. So you'll have Jaden playing against his brother here in the future. I know, right? You'd say it's a lock to go to Tech. It goes to UVA. But what would worry me is go look it up. Oscar Smith, and I might have these numbers right. I want to double check it though. I think I was telling someone this earlier today. They're like 2-7 in these out of state spotlight games. We're talking about opponents like Pickerington Central of Ohio, Venice out of Florida, Burns from South Carolina. Remember, they played DeMatha one year and got trounced when they had Chase Young, who's now, an NFL defensive lineman, Bosco from California. So, as great as they are, and as much as I feel like Oscar Smith is as good as anybody in Virginia and can repeat as state champs in Class 6, the largest classification in Virginia, Gonzaga, as you know, is mighty, mighty good. I think the Washington Post has them fourth, and they had 4 losses last year. This is a different style and brand of football. And they have a five-star guy of their own who's going to Michigan and Carter Meadows. And they have some big edge guys, tackles, edge guys, an edge guy going to Penn State. I think it's going to be hard for them the entire game to hold in there and win this. So I give an ever so slight edge to Gonzaga. But it wouldn't stun me if Oscar Smith pulled it off. They
Yeah.
they can do it. History just says in the out of state games they don't really. And what's the other thing? Those out of state games for them are always at the start. They're not at the middle or end. And I think
Right.
Oscar Smith's a team that they tend to get better as the year goes on. And this is something you notice too, whether it be Stonebridge in Northern Virginia or teams out west like the Salems, the Riverheadses. Phoebus is another example in Tidewater, Highland Springs, Richmond. A lot of teams they play when they come out of the tunnel and they see that Smith chest across the chest and the S on the helmet. There's a psychological edge and already a head touchdown or two. That won't happen with Gonzaga. They won't
No.
be phased, and that home crowd will be rocking.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see Lonnie Andrews back. I
Mhm.
heard so many rumors in the offseason that he was going to go IMG or whatever. He's back. Matthew, you're too young to remember, but back in the 80s, John Elway had they call the drive, and
Mhm.
he drove 99 yards
Yeah.
against Cleveland. I'll never forget that game. Everyone who watches football, and everyone watched football back then, saw this drive. Lonnie Andrews had the drive against Madison last year. They had not moved the ball in the whole second half. It looked like Madison was going to win the game. And this kid, this sophomore, and I think one of his wide receivers had gotten hurt, drove him, I think, 90 yards for a touchdown. That really turned the momentum around and gave Oscar Smith the chance to win. Did you hear the offseason rumors about Lonnie Andrews and how good is it? How good is this kid?
I didn't, but he's poised under pressure. He's composed, as you saw when I got a chance to broadcast it on NFHS against Madison, who I thought, Justin Counts does a fantastic job. We're talking about 5 straight region titles there, and nicely, who went off to Coastal Carolina. That game was Madison's game to win. And then Oscar Smith responded behind Andrews, and Travis Johnson, who made a nice
Yep.
catch in that fourth quarter. And he was quiet for 3 quarters. Madison kept him in check, but we know about the great players. I almost equate it to my man Larry Fitzgerald from my Arizona Cardinals in the Super Bowl against the Steelers. Remember, they kept him in check until the fourth, and then Kurt Warner found him for that touchdown to go ahead score, and thought they were going to win until Aaron Francisco and the defense took a bad angle. But that's another topic for another time. No, listen, those two guys rose to the occasion in that moment. Oscar Smith has had a couple of coaching staff changes, though. A couple of their assistant coaches, including LaFonte Thorogood and John Hogger, went off to coach as assistants in college. I
They go
want to say it's
Norfolk State.
no. I want to say it's at Emory and Henry where they're at now. But so Chris Scott has lost a couple of assistants from his staff. He's still got some of the main ones like Chris Singh and Giovanni Simmons in terms of helping organize the offense and defense. But I believe they've lost at least, and Eli Harold's not on their staff this year, former NFL defensive end and UVA standout. So there are a few guys that have decided, and I think Eli's was more personal, family related. So again, this goes back to all the little factors that, it takes some time for some of the new faces to get acclimated. They can definitely win this game. I'm not doubting Oscar Smith's ability. They can win this game, but I'm just going off history says you probably lean with when you're like 2-7 as a school in these out of state spotlight games against nationally ranked teams, which Gonzaga is. If they're not nationally ranked, they're close to being nationally ranked. History just says they don't perform quite as well. So I look at that when you got another 5-star and 4-star. I think this is a game that goes on to the last possession and to the wire. And I actually might pick Smith if it was at home, but being on the road in DC, I give Gonzaga like a 52 to 48% edge. I think it's just ever so slight.
It's good. It's going to be great. I can't wait. Well, let's get to the Northern Virginia marquee matchup. Class 5 Stonebridge, perennial regional champion and two-time state champion under Cedric Golson, I believe. Is that say it right?
Kedrick
And
Golston, Kedrick, yep.
yeah, Cedric Golson. And then Madison Justin Counts, Class 6 state runner-up last year. Madison, their defense was very experienced last year, so I know they graduated a lot of guys on defense. Obviously, you mentioned Dominic Nisley at Coastal Carolina. The quarterback was what's it, Cade
Cale Yates.
Cale Yates.
Yep.
Cale Yates, the
Yep.
quarterback, awesome little left-hander. Great. I think he's playing third base or second base somewhere and pitching somewhere. They graduated. So I know their fullback is playing halfback, but anyway, it seems like Stonebridge has many more returning players than Madison.
They do. One of the things that hurts Stonebridge in a sense is, and I got a chance to chat with Coach Golston here recently for our preview we put up on Virginia Preps, is that one of their top linemen on the offensive and defensive side of the ball ended up tearing his ACL this summer, and that was a guy they were to count on in a big way, Abdul Baggett. But
Hmm.
they bring back his son, Mr. Golson II, Hedrick, who's committed to Tennessee. He didn't go to Georgia like his pops did. Younger brother, Caden's a sophomore, and Julian, this secondary is just absolutely phenomenal. They've got Langston Pridgeon, who's a top 100 kid in the class of 2028. They got Keith Nolan Jr., who's a really good two-way receiver defensive back with multiple offers. They got Chase Jeter, who's committed to Syracuse senior, and Xavier Wimbush committed to UConn senior. You remember his brother, by the way, Zeke, he was the one that caught that game-winning touchdown pass from Jacob
Oh,
Thomas
that was
a
it.
couple years
Yeah.
back. Yeah, and over to you against Maury in the state finals.
Were
So
those guys
they're
all there? Was that secondary? Were they all there last year?
all were there last year. And what really, if you look at the numbers in depth, Stonebridge had a really rugged schedule, and they still do this year with Dunbar and Quince Orchard, a couple out of state teams. And their offense just didn't produce. They played 4 different quarterbacks last year, 4. And Amir England's back as a junior, has a better handle of the job. Also had some guys that were dinged up. I think Stonebridge is better in sync. Now, that being said, Coach Counts has done a wonderful job. I think they'll be able to run the ball with Matthew Weiler and a couple of backs. They won't have a guy that's just as dynamic as Nicely, but they have some hard hitters back on that defense that are really, really good. You remember Jack Ambrose, he's back at linebacker. They've got about 6 or 7 of those regulars from the defense that are really, really sound. So this is another toss-up type of game. I think it can go either way. I do think it might take some time for the Stonebridge offense to get going. I think it's a low-scoring game, and if history has shown us right the last couple of years, special teams tends to win this game because one year Madison had that that
I was there.
return for a score. Yeah, you were there for that. And then the field goal the year before that by Dylan Dastajurty to win the game for Stonebridge. So there's going to be some type of crazy play on special teams. I'm calling for it now. That's a block punt or a kickoff or punt return or a field goal. Something will probably determine the outcome of that game. I just haven't figured out who's going to win it yet.
Yeah. Is the Stonebridge going back to the single wing this year?
No. They've gone into a more of a wide open style of offense, pro style look. So
Mhm.
they're not single wingish. Now they can go to some formations that mirror it, but they're more pro style look under Coach Golston, which again had some growing pains last year. They did not score well early in the year, but their defense picked it up late. Remember, they beat Briarwoods late in the regular season, and they lost in the second round of the playoffs to Riverbend. But I think Stonebridge is the team to beat in 5D. And I think Madison is certainly the team to beat in 6D, although Westfield's coming, folks. Westfield's getting better and better, and I do think they're going to be a factor.
All right, we'll get to that. Don't
Yeah.
give away the ending here, Matthew. So, all right, are there any
Tease.
other big games we need to talk about for this week?
Well, I mean, those are the two main ones. I mean, if you go statewide, I mean, there's some out-of-state foes that are interesting games. I mean, you have, like I mentioned, Maury's playing Cardinal Gibbons
Oh, wow.
from North Carolina on the road, and they got a quarterback committed to Wake Forest. I'm curious to see what transpires in the Highland Springs opener for them with Hopo. Remember, we talked about Highland Springs plays Phoebus later in the year. They have Dinwiddie on the schedule later this year, so they have a couple of spotlight games of note. Heritage of Lynchburg, Julian, who are you starting out number one in the state in Class 3. They don't play this week, but they play the next week against Bridgeport of West Virginia, the team that won the state title the last couple of years. Liberty Christian is playing in Ohio against Ironton. So there's a lot of games for out-of-state foes, the teams that are expected to win a championship or compete for the championship, whether it be the high-level schools or even some of the lower classifications, your 3, 2s, and 1s. So those are the main games that kind of jump right out at me. And then one more I'd highlight that's probably for a lot of your Northern Virginia audience that I think is interesting is that Westfield at Patriot game. It's a game that last year Patriot won. They got Matthew Lamar, the big linebacker who's committed to Penn State, does Patriot, but Westfield brings back a lot of key parts, and I think they can be a threat there. So that's a toss-up type of game, and two teams that can certainly be dangerous in the playoffs: Patriot in 6B and Westfield in 6D. Oh, and one more that I forgot about. That's a really good game: Battlefield and North Stafford. North Stafford brought back a ton of players, and if you look at Battlefield's roster, they have at least 4 Division I commits with Callum O'Shea, the quarterback, going to Richmond, Keaton Ramey, the wide receiver, going to Stony Brook, Brandon Maury, the defensive back, going to Rutgers, and Luke Hatfield, no relation, Coach Greg Hatfield's son, the offensive lineman committed to UConn. So that has a chance to be a whale of a game.
I bet you that Hatfield kid has a clipboard standing next to the coach and knows everything about the game. Are those
Hey,
games you mentioned? Are they mostly this week? Or are they some of these games next week?
yeah, all of those except the Heritage of Lynchburg game is this week, either Thursday or Friday. That Heritage Lynchburg game against the West Virginia school is September the 5th. But that Luke Hatfield kid, you can clip it now. Best offensive lineman in the state for my money. He's
That's
got my
right.
vote.
We got to see. He's got a big assumption to overcome. So we'll see. Let's see how he does. That name is very heavy on his back. Well, let's go to the Hatfield previews now, and get away from the Hatfield offensive lineman. We got Class 6 last year, the final, as you called. You did a great job calling that game. I listened to the replay. Oscar Smith over Madison in that final of James Madison. One of the best high school games I've ever seen live. I haven't
Oh,
seen as many games as you have, but unbelievable game. It was ended on a missed 2-point conversion from the 20-yard line, and it's a game that anyone who was there will never forget. That game. It was incredible. Anyway, we've mentioned Oscar Smith, and clearly one of the favorites to repeat, and Madison, clearly one of the favorites in 6D.
yeah.
But they've lost a lot of, whether they're still on the elite level of Oscar Smith. We have a lot to. They have a lot to prove.
They do, but I think if you look at how that program has been built, Julian, I don't think it's with a lot of household names. I know Nicely was one of those guys that went to Coastal Carolina and was just a wondrous player, and for my money was the best player in the field in that game that day. But their defense is going to be a physical up front, collectively get the job done, and I do think playing some of these games that they do early on, they have not just the opener with Stonebridge, but Lake Braddock, who's going to be a real threat again, coming off back-to-back Occoquan Region 6 seed titles under Mike Dockery over there, and they've got the quarterback committed to Norfolk State and Ty Jackson. They play Westfield in the district. I think some of those games will help prepare them for the regional run and maybe another state playoff push. Remember, they were kind of snake bit for a couple of years there, getting past South County. Then they got over that threshold. They've lost these finals now to Oscar Smith twice, Freedom of Woodbridge one other time. So they could be ready to get there and get over the hump. They'd love to get to that title game at JMU and not have to play Oscar Smith, have somebody knock Oscar Smith off. But that's been the issue for a lot of people, Battlefield included, and Colonial Forge, who's lost to Oscar Smith about 4 or 5 times in the state playoffs. So it's not so much a Madison issue as it is a lot of people in Class 6 just haven't solved Oscar Smith, with the exception of a few years there when the old Concord had some of those real ground and pound teams. Westfield did it a couple times, actually won 3 overtime games in a row against them in the championship round during the Tyler Scanlon era. You remember that? And before that, Centerville. Coach Chris Haddock had a couple teams led by Mr. Turner running the football, and some good squads that beat Oscar Smith in the championship round. That one was at UVA. So it can happen, but generally speaking, it's been hard for a lot of the Nova schools lately to match up with the Tigers on the outside with their speed and skill level.
Yeah. Well, Highland Springs is now 5, right? So they're no longer a threat to.
Correct. They moved down to Region 5C.
So who is the competition for Oscar Smith in their region?
Good question. So coming up to their region this year is LC Bird, who was in Class 5 and lost in the state semis last year, if you recall, to Briar Woods. Yeah. And they have a defensive end, Chris Whitehead. He's a 2027 kid. Get a load of this kid, Julian. He is just a menace off the edge. But Bird graduated a bunch of guys. They were just on the outside of our top 10. We had Thomas Dale make it, but the biggest challenger, watch out for this team, Manchester. Got a 4-year starting quarterback in Landon Abernathy. They have not just him, but Jaden Ballard, who's committed to Buffalo, and Antonio Turner, who's committed to Hampton. A couple of wide receiver defensive backs. Another wide receiver who can go catch it, the jump ball. Landon Hicks is a junior. He's got a UVA offer already. And then Camden Chalkley, defensive end, who's a really impressive, long, lanky kid, just got offered by Wake Forest this week. Coach Jason Harrell, who's been the defensive coordinator for a long time, second year as a head coach, was on a staff when they won a state championship several years back under Tom Hall, who's now at Prince George. He's got a good group, and so good that they went to Old Dominion in June and won the 7-on-7 passing tournament, beating Maury in a championship of that. So they got some confidence from that, bring back a lot of starters. I think Manchester, we have 6th in our top 10, just behind the likes of Oscar Smith and Colonial Forge and Battlefield and Madison and Lake Braddock. I think they're a real dark horse to be playing into December. So I think having had these battles, and they also scrimmaged against Kings Fork and Phoebus and showed pretty well, I think they'll be ready for some of the fierce competition that late November will offer.
Yeah. Well, let's quickly do 6B. You mentioned Battlefield. And they look like on paper, and they usually are the class of the field in the regular season. They've had some trouble in the postseason. You did mention Patriot. They were tough last year. I know they lost the quarterback, and I'm sure a few others. The Stafford County teams put a lot of points on the board last year. You mentioned North Stafford earlier. I believe Stafford. All these teams are scoring 50 points a game. It seemed last year. So what are you looking at for 6B this year?
Well, you remember a few years ago, I think during my Hats Hits, I would go to Twitter, or now X, and I would say that the old Occoquan region, which you had Lake Braddock and Fairfax and South County, was the seatbelt region. I'm calling that Fredericksburg football the seatbelt, because last year, you're right, there was so many Friday night games with Riverbend and North Stafford and Brook Point and Colonial Forge that were like 35-34 or 31-28 or 42-34 and last second touchdowns or under a minute to go, lead changes. I love that region because I think for the longest, we've felt that 4B, which is the Richmond area region that has Varina and Dinwiddie and Huguenot's the best in the state. And you get no argument from me. Now they bring in Louisa with 2 super talented young men leading the way for Will Patrick's Lions, and 5-star running back Savion Hyder, who's going to Michigan, and 4-star receiver Dazier Carter, who's going to Rutgers. And I've also argued that 5B, which has got Maury and Kings Fork and Warwick and Nansemond River, is really, really good. But let's not leave out 6B, because in addition to Battlefield and Colonial Forge, who I think are the favorites in that region, Battlefield, they don't lose in the regular season. They're big bugaboos in the playoffs. Can they get over that hump? Well, they could this year. Colonial Forge last year won the region as a 6th seed. Didn't win their district, but they won the region, and they've been in the state playoffs many a times before. Bring back an experienced quarterback, bring back a really good receiver, and Tayshawn Jones going to Old Dominion, and other good talented players as well. But then you have some teams lurking in the background, like Independence, which is new to that region, Julian. Mickey Thompson out of retirement, now on the coaching staff for RJ Windows,
Oh, he
called the
is? He's
offensive play. Yeah,
Independence?
he's the offensive coordinator. We put them at number 10 in the class, six top 10. Look out for Independence. They're dangerous. And by the way,
That's a
they might be a
tough,
six,
that's a
7, or
tough
8 seed
draw
again.
to go all the way from the Loudoun County, the plush five team districts in Loudoun County. You're going into the salty 6B. That's got to be a
Well,
tough draw for them.
hear me out. Remember this and record it. Don't be surprised if they're 3-0 coming off the bye hosting Battlefield on the last weekend of September. You have, in addition to them, Garfield, not Garfield and Friends, but Garfield, the Red Wolves. They got a really good group. Quarterback is back, Mr. Hamlin, I think it is. He's very, very good. And they've been building. Oh, by the way, Woodbridge, they bring back a bunch of guys, and they're getting better and better and better. I think they're going to be one of the surprise teams. They got the safety, Raphael Johnson, committed to Howard University. Good skill people. Woodbridge is good. Gainesville's not bad. Patriot, who knocked off Battlefield in the playoffs last year. Your 6, 7, and 8 seeds in 6B are live. If last year showed us that you can win the region like Colonial Forge, it can happen again. So you're not safe if you get a 1, 2, or 3 seed in that region. Usually you look at the playoffs and say, all right, these 1, 2, and 3s win by. Mark this down now. Come November, I'm willing to bet you there will be a lower seed that wins that region.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't happen, you can almost take it to the bank that there will be a one-score game with an 8, 7, or 6, given a 1, 2, or 3, scare of their life. I'm just telling you that region's got a lot of good football teams. Those are not easy first-round games for the favorites in that region.
When we lost Coach Overton from Freedom, we did gain some competition in terms of parity
Yes.
in the region. So that has
Mm-hmm.
been a byproduct. Well, let's go to six. Let's go to 6C quickly. You mentioned Westfield, obvious favorite, Lake Braddock. I know they're very, very, very deep, Lake Braddock. I'm thinking that I don't know what Hayfield has coming back. I didn't see the scores of the scrimmages. Is there anyone else we should worry about in the 6C?
As far as when it comes to championship time, I say not really. Although I would mention two teams that I'm keeping an eye on. South County had the coaching change. I'm hearing they've looked good with Charlie Miska back at quarterback in the off season here, so they could surprise a little bit. I think people have written them off maybe too early. They play Colonial Forge out of the chute, so if they happen to win that or compete well in that, and they also have Highland Springs in Game 3 coming off the bye. If they show well in either of both of those games, then maybe they are a threat to Lake Braddock. My pick in that region. But the other team is West Springfield. I think West Springfield's got enough pieces back that they can be a dangerous live team. They do have Madison early in the schedule. Their last game of the regular season is Lake Braddock. So almost like a Giants Patriots the year they won the Super Bowl. If they even lose that game close, if they see Lake Braddock again in the region championship, there might be some things that they can change and tweak to give them a shot. But if you really put my feet to the fire here, I think Lake Braddock wins that region about as comfortably as any of the teams in Class 6. I think Madison Westfield could be a war. I think Smith will have a harder time than most expect with Manchester in 6A, but ultimately prevail in 6B. I mean, that can be one of 5 or 6 teams, Julian. I don't feel safe by picking Battlefield, Forge, or anybody. Give me the field over a single team in 6B.
Exactly. I think I made a mistake and I said that Westfield was in 6C. Thanks for
No
correcting me.
worries. Yeah, no problem.
And I think with Westfield, the only rumors I've been hearing about a team that can challenge Westfield or be really solid, of course, other than Madison, is Washington Liberty because they had a great year last year out of nowhere. So I am hearing whispers that they could be good again. Anyone else in 6D
No,
that catches
that's
your
a
eye?
good point. Yeah, it's a good point. Good defense and the line play. I hear they're really huge up front. They graduated a bunch of seniors, but really big up front. The other team that we have in our honorable mentions of the top 10, that's one of them. We actually have a couple. Obviously, Yorktown's got the big time tight end who's going to Rutgers and Brady Owens, but Langley, I think Langley's been getting better and better. I don't know if they have enough athletes at every position to ultimately go win the region, but I think Langley is good enough on a given night to hang with just about anybody. So Langley's a team that I like what they're doing over there. I think they have a lot of solid parts. I just don't know if they have elite level guys to go win that big game in the playoffs, but they could mess it up for somebody very easily.
Yeah. Woodson has a new coach, Coach Joe. I'm freezing on his last name. I want to wish him the best of luck in his new job. He was Yorktown's assistant coach
Mm-hmm.
for many years. Well, let's go to Class 5. Last year, Maury destroyed Briar Woods in that game. Briar Woods has got a new coach. Got a new coach this year, but the head coach is back on the staff and is going to be helping out. But clearly Maury probably doesn't have. Well, actually, you said their district is tough. So tell me about Maury. Is Maury a shoe-in to repeat as Class 5 champion?
I don't know that they're a shoe-in. There are some question marks with what they graduated. They're not as imposing in the defensive front, losing some of the guys that went off to the last couple of years, South Carolina and Clemson and Maryland, and a corner that went to Duke, the likes of names such as Kendall Daniels and Ari Watford and Fred Johnson and Devontae Floyd. However, they have a number of guys back. Ike Simmons, the linebacker going to Pittsburgh, really good. Wide receivers, three of them going to college FBS or FCS with Elijah Moss Williams, headed to James Madison. Damon McDaniel Jr. going to North Carolina Central, and Javon Wiggins committed to William and Mary. New quarterback in Damo Everett, sophomore. I think he's going to be mighty fine. He's the younger brother of Dalen Everett, who's one of the top corners in college football, who's at Georgia. The name to watch out for Maury this year is Tayshawn Branch, the running back, who last year, Julian, he did not touch the football a whole lot. He had 77 carries, but he had 16 touchdowns. So that's literally almost a touchdown every 5 carries. And I think he's going to get a lot more carries and maybe more touchdowns. But Class 5, I mean, Green Run is talent rich. And anytime you have Highland Springs and Stonebridge, both of whom have beaten Maury before, relatively recently in the last, 5, 6, 7 years in a state championship, if they're able to progress and get that far, which is a big question, they won't be afraid of them. And remember, Green Run only lost to Maury by 6 last year. So Maury's region, their district, piece of cake. They'll beat everybody in the Eastern District by 40, 50 plus points. You can always book it. Their region, however, is tricky because you have Kings Fork, who's got a lot of good
They're
athletes led by
five. They're
Josh.
five now. Kings
Yeah,
Fork
they're
is.
5B. They actually lost to Maury in the region championship and was within striking distance at halftime last year. They got a linebacker going to Virginia Tech and Joshua Pittman, bunch of quality athletes. Watch out for the name Anthony Henderson, one of the best junior receivers in the country. He's going to blow up this year coming in from Bruton to Kings Fork. And watch out for Warwick, who's still been a factor, and a good defense led by Christian Corbin, and Nansman River, who is sneaky good. Quarterback committed to Syracuse and Tyrell Grant Jr. So Maury's region, they could get a couple of tough games in the region semis and region finals, which they haven't really had those lately. But when the dust settles, if you're giving me Maury the field, I'm gonna trust Three McCain and Maury. But I do think it won't be a cakewalk for the championship.
How about the rest of the state in 5? We mentioned Stonebridge, Tuscarora is a 4. But what about the rest of the state? I know you got some Roanoke teams. You got
Yeah.
some teams. I think Albemarle's a 5. Is there anyone else that can compete for the state title?
I think if you gave me how many can win the state championship in 5, I'll limit it to just 5. I'll say it's Maury, Green Run, Kings Fork, Highland Springs, and Stonebridge. Now, quality teams that can maybe mess it up for one of them to get there, I would say Nance River can mess it up. Warwick can mess it up. John Champ, which moves up from Class 4 to Class 5, keep an eye on them. For Highland Springs and its region, Hermitage and Glen Allen could make things dicey. Salem out of Virginia Beach could make things tricky for Maury and its for Green Run in its region. Salem of Virginia Beach is in Green Run's region. They played them close last year in the region final. And then out west, William Fleming and Patrick Henry Roanoke. William Fleming lost its stud running back Malachi Coleman to Syracuse, but they've been getting better and better, and I'm not going to write them off. They're in Region 5C, and Patrick Henry Roanoke, River Bend. Those are some teams that could be on the surface not bad, but I think you have some pretty hefty favorites as far as Maury to win its region, Green Run to win its region, Stonebridge to win its region, and Highland Springs to win its region.
Yeah, it's so crazy that Maury and Green Run are in different regions are probably like 15, 12 miles apart. But it's the same thing in Northern Virginia. So
Now, real quickly before we go to 4, they are, from what I've been told, haven't confirmed this, cross bracketing this year for 5 for the state semis.
very good.
Not every class is doing that. I think 5 and 4 are, and I want to say 2 might be as well, or maybe I forget which. There's one more I think class it is, but I don't think 3 and 1 are, and I don't think 6 is. So it's all screwed to know who's cross bracketing. But I will say if they are cross bracketing, that means you might get an all 7-5-7 championship potentially with a Maury Green Run as opposed to a semifinal.
Yeah. When you say cross bracket, that means you're not going to face a team from your region in the semis, right?
Well, no, it means you have A, B. It won't be A, B, C, D necessarily. It might be A versus C or B versus D. But again, I'm waiting to see that officially in black and white on the VHSL website, which I haven't yet. So,
Okay. Well, let's go to 4. Last year was Phoebus winning the fourth or fifth in a row, I believe,
fourth row,
beating
yeah.
Varina. a
Mhm.
perennial powerhouse. Are those two teams still strong? And who else are you looking at in four?
Yeah, I think it's those two at the top. And if they have it cross-bracket, they can meet each other again in the state final in four. Varina's region's a lot harder, although we won't say that Lafayette comes up from Class 3 to Class 4, and Andy Lynn's Rams, they have beaten Phoebus before as recent as the COVID year on their way to a Class 3 championship over Lord Botetourt. Phoebus did lose a lot, but they bring back that really steady quarterback in Mauricus Banks, who was started 17 games and has not lost one yet, and he's won two championships with over 4,000 yards accounted for. And he's already committed to Old Dominion as a junior. But Varina has more named guys back, Julian. They have literally on their roster. They brought in three new running backs. Sir Paul Cheeks, who transferred in from LC Bird, is committed to West Virginia. Michael Farley Jr. is committed to Hampton. Braylon Hood, a linebacker, is going to Furman. And then the two big names that are back from last year, the state defensive player of the year, Jay Sean Bull Richardson, committed to UVA, and wide receiver defensive back Damari Carter, one of the best athletic wide receivers in the state. He's committed to UVA. So Varina has more named guys back. Have they closed the gap enough? We shall see if they stay healthy. I think the quarterback, Caleb Weiss, is going to be a really big deal for them, how he navigates them through the tricky schedule, which they could lose a couple games regular season. They play Maury in game two. That's going to be a hard game for Varina, but I think it's those two at the top. However, four's got more depth to it than in some years past because Huguenot and Dinwiddie and Louisa, all in Varina's region, are good. And Lafayette, as I said, have won a state championship before. We saw some nice years from Hanley and Sharando and GW Danville out west, though they haven't beaten Salem in the playoffs. They have a really big, hulking offensive and defensive line. So they can be counted on. And my sneaky team that I think is going to surprise people and maybe make it to the state semis and dare I say the championship is Jefferson Forest. I love Jefferson Forest's defense, and they could be the team that we're not talking a lot about now, but we're talking more about come late November into December.
Yeah. Well, that's a good time to be talked about
Yeah.
around Thanksgiving time. Well, let's go to three. Last year, Liberty Christian just destroyed Kettle Run, who had a couple of amazing upsets to get to the final. Upsets, who knows? Maybe they were just better. Kettle Run had an awful offseason with a horrible injury or whatever to the coach guy we both have interviewed before. So I don't know what's going on over at Kettle Run. Let's hope they get themselves together. But anyway, and you mentioned Liberty Christian may not be the favorite to repeat in three.
Yeah, when you lose a player of Gideon Davidson's quality, who was just all world at running back and linebacker, and then by the way, he's now playing at Clemson and has a chance to start as a true freshman there in the
Wow.
ACC. I mean, it's just I hear he's high on the depth chart. He's got a chance to see the field. It could be ACC freshman year. He's that good for them. There are some concerns there, but their offensive and defensive lines are good. And Frank Rocco, I got a lot of trust in him as a coach. He gets it. I do think though, Brad Bradley at Heritage of Lynchburg, who's now the AD there as well, he's got a team that's ready to finally conquer them. They won a championship one year with Phoebus. They lost badly another year, and they bring back a bunch of 3-year starters, kids that took some licks that first year, got beaten in the playoffs, but Zeta Holloway and Aiden Slash, the quarterback, and the two running backs, David Bradley being one of them. They have a lot of good parts there, and I think their defense is going to be really, really sound. Coach Dane Washburn, the coordinator they got in from Brookville, helps organize that defense for them. Got a couple of transfers, one from Maryland and one from EC Glass that'll help their cause. So I think they might be ready to unseat LCA, as surprising as that is. Now, there's a big disparity, Julian, between the eastern side of the state and the western. I think your 4 or 5 best teams in Class 3 are all in the west. It might just be Heritage of Lynchburg and LCA and Magna Vista and Lord Botetourt. The eastern side of the state, with Lafayette moving up, and then Armstrong and Thomas Jefferson of Richmond going down, I think it just makes it very murky. And you're going to have some 3, 4, dare I say, a 5-loss team get to a state semifinal and have a chance to go to a state championship out of Class 3. Now, I'm hoping they cross bracket in 3 because I don't know how we'll see that. Now, Lake Taylor and Hope will have name programs, name coaches, Ricky Irby, who's won a couple state titles, Hank Sawyer, who's won 3 state titles, but they don't have those name NFL caliber guys anymore. Like Trevion Henderson was the running back at Ohio State for Hopewell, and Jalen Holmes, who was the menacing defensive end and tight end for Lake Taylor. So they might get through that Region 3A, which is relatively weaker. And Kettle Run, despite its off-season, issues, Delmar Christian interim takes over. They got a fantastic sophomore in Dyson Tapscott, who's going to play quarterback now this year. He had 9 interceptions as a freshman defensive back, Julian. He is just lights out. But they lost their best playmakers in terms of quarterback, running back, tight end, all graduated. So Kettle Run might come out of Region 3B, but there's a big drop off from the western side of the state to the eastern side of the state. So I don't know if I have one team I love, but if you pin me down, which region is going to win the state title? It's going to be 3C or 3D, not 3A or 3B.
Yeah, okay. Let's see what the West can do. Well, let's go to Class Two. Last year, Graham big win over Strasburg, and I didn't realize this, but Strasburg is yet to win that state title because they've been a powerhouse for so long. With those two schools, I'm sure they're back in the mix again. But what are your predictions for Class Two?
Strasburg is bringing back about, I think it's 14 to 16, maybe 18 starters from last year. They bring back a lot of guys, but they lost their 2,000-yard all-purpose guy in Taki Coates, and they were runner-up last year, and I've got them number 7. You say, why do you have them that low? Because Class 2 has gotten that much better. Class 2 is about as deep as any classification because Graham brings back a lot. I'm starting out Glenver at the top. Coach Kevin Clifford's won a championship before, and his quarterback, Brody Doyot, is all-world, Julian. He's committed to Charlotte. You and the UVA folks got to try to flip him because he's got an offer from the Wahoos recently here, so he might change his commitment. We'll see. But he is a quarterback defensive end who is fantastic. They bring back a lot of skill guys and linemen. And then even beyond those two teams, I talked about Thomas Jefferson of Richmond with those 2 wide receivers, Amari Goff, who's a Syracuse commit, and Isaiah Harris, the Old Dominion commit. Remember, Harris, he was the guy that helped Albemarle get to the state basketball championship. He transferred. He was that point guard for them against Green Run. He's now at TJ of Richmond. So they have 2 bona fide game-changing wide receivers. Armstrong's got a bunch of talented players back, some new faces as well. So you have a lot of good teams there. And oh, by the way, Union and Poquoson have to be accounted for because Union brings back most of its team. They've had some wars over the years with Graham. It's much like, Madison and Westfield type of rivalry. And Poquoson, they have probably the most coveted junior lineman in the state in Carter Jones, who's got offers from just about everybody under the sun, including UVA, Clemson, you name them, Penn State. He's a two-way force for Poquoson, and they've won a couple region titles. So Class 2 is pretty deep. Even your teams that are in the bottom of our top 10, the Gretnas of the world, the Radfords of the world, the Lebanons, they can go make some noise. So I like the Class 2 picture. Graham might not find it as easy to repeat. Them in Glenver was a war last year, and I think whoever comes out of the western side of the state probably has the slight edge over the east, but I'm not ruling out a TJ, an Armstrong, or Poquoson because I think they will have a tricky road to get there, and they'll have enough athletes to hang in there.
Yeah. Hey, don't forget, Matthew, to I don't know if you've read Jeremy Haymore's book about Giles, which Giles is close to Graham, close to Bluefield. But it's a great book about Appalachian football. You would really, really appreciate it. So if you get a chance.
I haven't, but you're now the second person, and I've seen some of the posts on social media. I was talking to Chris Rose. Shout out to him. He's a all-time great sports writer in the Northern Neck. He told me just the other night that I need to read that book and get it. So you're the second one to tell me, and I want to get it and read it. So I'm going to check it out for sure. Yeah.
And also probably interview Jeremy. He's a great guy to interview as well.
Yep.
I enjoy talking to him.
No doubt.
Let's go to Class 1. I remember a few years ago, Essex was one of your dark horses, and I don't know if you picked them last year, but they actually got it done last year. They beat, I believe, Grayson County in the final. Sometimes Class 1 things can change quickly because it's a very small enrollment, and you have to replace a lot of players. What are you seeing in Class 1?
No, I see Essex repeating. I think they're one of the 3 of the 6 state champs. Julian, I was telling someone the other day, my favorite stat from last year is that you had 6 champions last year, and 2 of the champions from 2023 did not win a game. One of them was Freedom of Woodbridge, which we know why. Everybody left. And then the other one was Galax, who, if you remember, beat Essex in that nail biter the year before. Essex brought back most of that team. They won it, and now they bring back a lot of guys. They only have about 4 starters back on defense, but the offense should be humming. They got a thunder and lightning combination with Demetrius Stewart and Holmes, that running back. Those 2 guys bring back an all-state center, and Marshall bring back a 2-time all-state blocker, and Daniel Waller at tackle. He was guard last year. A lot of key pieces back for Todd Jones, who's been through it before, and they run their stuff. It's workmanlike. Now, The intriguing storyline in Class 1 is Riverheads drops down. Remember, they won 7 straight state titles from 2016 to 2022 when they were in Class 1. Went up to Class 2. Robert Casta retired. Ray Norcross, his longtime D coordinator, took over, and they fell to Radford in the state championship and then lost last year in the region semis. So they have to see if they're back on schedule. Now, I will tell you this, Riverheads is junior heavy, so their year might be next year. They might be laying the foundation. I think we got 2 collision courses to watch out for. You got Rappahannock, which beat Essex regular season last year, then got boat raced in the region final. You remember their quarterback in C.J. Kelly and the running back Kenneth Madison. Because they beat Essex in the regular season, they have confidence to go play them again and maybe win. So that's in Region 1A. And in Region 1B, you have Alta Vista and Riverheads. They play regular season and could see each other again in the region final. So that's the one to watch out for. But C and D are pretty much up for grabs to me, mostly. The team that I see making a big jump and finally getting over the hump is Eastside. They lost last year a close playoff game to Rye Cove, who's still very good. Their quarterback graduated, did Rye Coves and Landon Lane. But remember this name, Julian, Keldon Hamilton. He's a running back, linebacker, throwback type of kid, blood of your nose type of kid. He's, to me, the most underrated football player in the entire state, bar none. Love this kid. I think he's highly under recruited. He's going to be a gem for somebody. So Eastside could find its way to the state championship on the backs of Keldon Hamilton. And Grayson County is going to be heard from. George Wythe will be heard from. I like Narrows too. So all said and done, give me Essex over Eastside in the final.
All right. Where's Eastside from, Matthew?
Coburn. They're all the way out there in Southwest
Okay,
Virginia.
so
You
it's
can
a
actually
consolidation.
drive.
What's that?
Yeah, you can actually drive from Virginia Beach to Madison Square Garden in New York quicker than you can to Eastside High School.
That's right. Yeah,
It's a true
exactly
story.
right. Another one of those
Yeah.
consolidation schools. All right, Matthew, this has been great. I really appreciate your time. I know you're really busy. Give me your 2-minute preview of Virginia State college football.
Well, I think that the storylines are fascinating. You have, and it's odd. I was just telling this to David Till the other day on our show that you have obviously UVA and Virginia Tech in the ACC. It's hot seat time for both Tony Elliott and Brent Pry. Can they take that jump, or they might have to have a regime change? You have Ricky Ronnie and Old Dominion trying to get to a bowl game again. James Madison Liberty is the most intriguing game. They finally play each other this year, and they both have been relevant teams either in the top 25 or on the outside of it. But the big storyline is an FCS school, and it's Norfolk State, which is coached by Michael Vick. So there are all eyes on Michael Vick. You have ESPN First Take coming to Norfolk, Virginia for his first game, and people want to see if Norfolk State, an FCS school, can really get this thing going like Deion Sanders did at Colorado. Now, there are some skeptics, but there's some buzz there. So I think that's the neat storyline. It's almost like the Bill Belichick storyline at UNC, but Virginia college football, we don't have the Big Ten or the SEC behemoths, Julian, but we have some compelling games people want to see, whether it's the rivalries with Tech and UVA or a James Madison Liberty now, a JMU Old Dominion, Hampton Norfolk State's the Battle of the Bay. It's always been a big rivalry. There are some games that will keep us alive and interested, even if the teams are not winning 8, 9, 10 games and talked about like Georgia and Texas and Ohio State and fill in the blank.
Yeah. Well, Matthew, just one word answers to these questions. I'm going to name a school. And I want you to give me how many wins they get this year, and then we're going to revisit this at the end of the year. UVA.
Can I pull up the schedule while I do this with you here?
Yeah,
Give me
yeah,
1 second to
sure.
grab the schedule. Give me
Yeah.
1 second to grab the
Yeah.
schedule so I can grab it here. I'm gonna say they're beating Stanford. That's a definite. Well, they looked bad in their first game. I hate to do it, Julian. I'm gonna go 5,
5. How about Tech?
6.
JMU.
I'm gonna go 10. How about that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Last one, Norfolk
I
State.
think their offense. I think their offense is really good. I have some questions about it, but I think their offense is really good.
JMU seems like they're good in everything now. Last one, Norfolk State. How many wins does Vic get in his first year?
Oh, I hope they don't fry my tail in the 757. I'm gonna go 4, Julian. 4. I think it's
You
gonna be a
have
rough
to
year.
tell
I
the
got
truth
4 and
because
8.
I'm going to hold you
No,
to it.
I know I am. Now I could be way off. I do want to see how those turn out. So remind me when I come back on, if it's not December, but how bad those were, because I'm sure, especially the Tech and UVA fans will remind me every second of
Oh,
that.
yeah.
But
After
and you didn't
UVA
give me Old
wins
Dominion,
8.
by the way. You didn't give me Old Dominion or Liberty.
Old Dominion. Old Dominion.
I'm gonna give you 7. How about that?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Old Dominion and James
surprise.
Madison run the state.
Ricky Ronnie, if you're watching this, do not let me down, buddy. I got faith in you this year to have a 7. And I have never picked them to win that many games ever,
That's awesome.
ever.
That's great for the
Yeah.
757.
You
And
want
maybe
Liberty
one day
real
we'll have
quick?
a Norfolk State ODU rivalry. What
Oh
about
yeah, you want
Liberty?
Liberty real quick?
Yeah, the Flames.
All right, the Flames. And by the way, that James Madison game, I think, is the again. I'm going to make your UVA and Tech fans mad, Julian. That's the best game in the state this year.
Well,
Best game in the state. Mark it down. September 20th. Now Madison's off the bye, which I think is going to give them the slight edge to go win it on the road. But look at Liberty's schedule real quick. They got Maine, Jacksonville State, Bowling Green, JMU, Old Dominion, UTEP, New Mexico State, Delaware, Missouri State, FIU, La Tech, Kennesaw State. That is a weak schedule. I'm sorry. It's not. I mean, your hardest game is James Madison probably or Bowling Green. So because of that, I'm going to go with the Flames. I'm waffling between 9 and 10. Coach Young says, "Go be a waffle. Go be. I'm a pancake guy, not a waffler." I'm going to go 9.
no.
9
Well,
for the
okay.
Flames.
I got
Yeah,
them
they're
all
going to get
written
upset
down.
by somebody though.
What's
Somebody's
that?
going to upset them. Yeah. Somebody will knock them off unexpectedly though. I'm
Yeah,
going to go
exactly.
9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, Matthew, this is great. Make sure I'll put your information about your new website. Of course, you can always find you on Virginia Preps. That hasn't changed, right? That's still
Correct. Yep. VirginiaPreps.com. Watch us on Cova Sports TV and on the X. Follow me at Hatfield Sports.
great. Well, Matthew, thanks for all you do. You do an amazing job keeping us abreast of all these sports. I can't wait the football season. It's fun to follow you in Virginia Preps. You guys have the best polls and the best features in Virginia sports. So thanks for all you do, and look forward to another great season.
Hey, it's always been a blast and a pleasure talking with you, Julian. And thank you so much. We look forward to it again.
Let's do it, man. Take care.
You got it.